Everybody. How are you this morning? Welcome to the Meta Cafe for your daily astrology, human design, and oracle report. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea or your water, whatever your pleasure, and sit back and let's talk some astrology. So I had an opportunity yesterday to talk to several people. Yesterday was a very talky, very busy day, as I think a lot of people were under the influence of some really interesting energies, whether it was triggers from their Black Moon Lilith or the shadow part of themselves, or whether it was some other odd energy going on. I wasn't even immune to the odd energy of the day yesterday. It wasn't a bad day. I wouldn't say it was a bad day. In fact, I think it was kind of filled with some interesting ahas. And so to me, that's a good day, right? Good morning, Roseanne. It's good to see you out there. And, Roseanne, obviously, yesterday, she opened up the doorway for our discussion on the Black Moon Lilith. And for hours yesterday, I was getting texts, messages, and emails from people about their Black Moon Lilith. So I opened up, a can of worms, I guess, or Roseanne, you opened up a can of worms, but I thought it was a good one because so many times so many astrologers out there don't do much with the Black Moon Lilith. And she's really an important part of the part of us that we don't see clearly. And if we want to live authentically, and if we want to live in our own authority, then one of the things we have to do is to address our shadow. So good morning, Suzanne. It's good to see you out there. Roseanne says, I'm beginning to love BML, Black Moon Lilith. I can understand why, right? Because she brings us so much. I was reading my own again this morning going, oh God, it's funny because Roseanne and I yesterday were having a conversation. I think it was you, Roseanne. And she said something about something about my shadow seemed so much easier to deal with than her own. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I would much rather deal with her shadow than my own. But isn't that kind of the case, right? The part of us that we don't see clearly in the dark is something that we've been pushing away, right? We kind of want to relegate it to the darkness. And we want to relegate it to the darkness, but we can't because it keeps coming up in our faces. And pushing it away, of course, does no good. Bringing it in, inviting it to show you its lessons is very important. Okay, I see a message here from Tina. Says, hi all, I have an important job interview in an hour. Welcome the good astro vibes. So Tina, I need to know where you live because the moon is void of course until 11:40 a.m. Pacific time today. And often that isn't necessarily an opportune time for job interviews. I don't want to set that up to be a negative for you, but it may mean it takes a little bit longer to get what you want done. And if I remember correctly, Tina, you're on the West Coast, are you not? Torrance, California. Yes, you are definitely on the West Coast. I got a funny story for you for Torrance. I think it's in the city of Torrance or Redondo Beach. When I was growing up was our favorite Foster's Freeze or Frosty Freeze or whatever it was called. And we would drive from Long Beach to that Frosty Freeze just to have their chocolate chip shakes. They were to live for. Awesome. So Torrance, yay, it's a good memory there for me for that place. So what I would say for you, Tina, is there are some really good astrological vibes going on right now, but just know this is a process that's going to drag out. And I already see that you're saying the process has been for 4 months so far. She's been patient. I think you're going to need to be patient a little bit longer, right? A little bit longer. But, maybe that is a good thing because maybe there are some things working to your benefit in the background. Maybe they're looking at paying more. Maybe they're looking at rearranging the job a bit. Maybe, who knows? But I would bet it's all in your benefit. What sign are you, Tina? Because I don't remember that right off the top of my head. In the meantime, Tina, tell me what sign you are so I know. You're Gemini, aren't you? Yeah, I don't remember. There's so many of you out there now in the mornings, and I love this. But I can't possibly remember all of your signs, but I do pretty good most of the time. She's a double Scorpio. Holy moly. All right. So for you, I don't know what degree of Scorpio you are, but here's something for you to understand for today. The sun is in a quincunx in conjunct. Let's call it that, because quincunx is such a hard word to say. And Sun and rising Scorpio. Okay, good to know. Because Jupiter is in Scorpio right now, so she's bringing some benevolent energy. But today the Sun is kind of in so you're earlier. The Sun is in an interesting angle to Jupiter, in what we often think of as a difficult aspect. But I find that this is an aspect that if we are patient, and you've been patient here, that the adjustments that have been made while we've been waiting are usually beneficial. They make us feel like, oh my God, this is dragging on forever. But it really is a good thing, because whatever's been going on in the background, the adjustments, the sacrifices being made, the changes being made, all turn out to be fairly positive. So I think you're probably in a good position. Is your birthday really 11/11? Gateways and portals. Yes. 11 degrees, 11 minutes. Wow. So 11s are powerful, and this is an 11 year. So I think things are lining up for you, Tina, but your patience will be rewarded. Let's say that. Now, interesting, because the new moon is on Sunday, so perhaps the job begins after the new moon, which puts you in a very powerful position for that. So whatever it is that's being adjusted for you, or being adjusted in this particular position, is in your benefit. So just be patient a little bit longer. So, and that's the way of the void, of course, moon. And today is the 11th. I didn't even think about that. Holy God. I think this is your lucky day. You maybe go play the lottery today, huh? Anyway, so for the most part, the void, of course, moon does slow things down. Mercury retrograde slows things down, draws things out. And of course, when we have the Sun in a difficult conjunction, or not a conjunction, but a difficult configuration with another planet, that also has that same effect of drawing things out a little bit. So I'm just going to say congratulations now, and be sure to let us know what the effects of your interview are today. Okay. We want to see you tomorrow morning so we can tell what's going on. So she is saying she sees 11s all the time. And today is the 11th, of course. Yay. I totally feel the background adjustment. See, that's the thing. Jupiter's on your ascendant. So, you're almost covered there. Like Lady Luck is blessing you already in your life. And she may be blessing you with the patience that it takes to wait out a better job offer. And that may be what's happening here as well. So I always like to tell people, even when there's a negative, or what can be perceived as, wow, the sun just came out. Even when there's something that can be perceived as negative, that it is often that we just can't see with our limited vision what it is that's being worked for us in the background. And we are so easily giving up on ourselves sometimes that then, we inadvertently push the opportunity away from us. So don't do that. Stick with this, and let's just see where it goes. And it'll be interesting to hear from you tomorrow or the next day, or if we have to wait until next Monday to find out, we'll be excited to hear from you. So today there's also really good things going on, and Pluto on my North Node. So a life of transformation. Wow, 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 wow. And so here's some things that might help everyone today, including you, Tina, in your job search, is that the moon and the sun both are in a sextile to Uranus. And the interesting thing about that is, first thing this morning, I don't usually turn the news on, but my husband sometimes will turn the news on in the morning. And the first thing I see at me is Paul Ryan, who is the Speaker of the House right now, but he is not running for re-election. So now there's going to be this power void in Washington in terms of who's going to fill the House Speaker's position, and then who is also going to fill Paul Ryan's seat in the House. So that was kind of shocking. I mean, if there was anybody that was going to bow out of races, I think it would be so. I wouldn't have expected it to be Paul Ryan, right? That was sort of a shock, sort of an awakening. And my guess is that he's doing that because he wants to run for president or some other powerful position. and he's positioning himself to be able to do that. Maybe he's taking a powerful role somewhere else, but someone like Paul Ryan doesn't back out without a reason. He's too young for that. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. But when the moon and sun are sextiling Uranus, we get sort of barraged with these surprises. It was good news, Mimi says. Mimi, I absolutely adore you. You and I think alike when it comes to politics, I have a feeling. And it's not, I just find politics an interesting foil for what's going on astrologically. And so I don't necessarily think of myself as political, but I do think of myself as astrological, and as above, so below. And it's always so obvious in the political realm what is happening with the stars and the planets. So I love it. So good news, perhaps, for us who are... I'm not saying it. Anyway, good news for us, and maybe good news for Paul Ryan, maybe good news for the whole of the country. But there may be more good news to come, not necessarily in the political realm today, but maybe in your own personal life. And this is a banner day. I want you all to watch this day carefully and observe, not get involved necessarily, but observe what's happening today, because when we get to the new moon on Sunday, the sun and the moon will be in a conjunction with Uranus and Eris. And that's going to be a fireworks kind of day. Whether that happens on Saturday or Sunday, I don't know. The new moon actually doesn't happen until, let's see, West Coast time, 6:57 p.m. So almost 10 o'clock, almost 11 o'clock p.m. for you all on the East Coast. So I would expect something interesting to arise out of some of the news that we hear today. Some of the things that we experience today are going to find their new expression as we move into the weekend. We'll talk more about the new moon as we move on, because I hate to get too far into that and make you be, thinking about that far into the future and then not live your moment today. So the male dynamics are falling and the female dynamics are rising. I agree to some extent. I don't know that it's that the male energy is falling so much as it appears that that's happening, but I think it's the female energy, the feminine energy rising up to claim her space, her rightful space next to and as powerful as the masculine energy. Because, face it, masculine and feminine are... They're like the different sides of the same coin, right? We can't have one without the other. And so we need that masculine. We need that masculine in all of his glory and in all of his righteousness and all of his way that he is designed, he as in the masculine energy, to benefit this planet. What's been missing is the feminine to rise up and meet her power, and her righteousness in this particular paradigm. So I see this as a strengthening and an empowering of both, maybe a little bit of a course direction, because I think the masculine is strayed over into trying to dictate the feminine energy. And it certainly in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, late 60s, 70s, and early 80s, we had the feminine that was sort of moving on over into the masculine territory. We saw it in music videos and such, like Robert Plant and Simply Irresistible, that video where the women are all sort of dressed like men and they're the guitar players and they seem sort of very masculine. So women, we're not here to take over the masculine. We're here to rise up in our glory as women, as the feminine energy, and to claim our rightful place, not to take over the masculine or push the masculine out. We need him to be powerful. We need him to be strength. And we need to take our jobs, which are to, like I started to bring up on, I think it was Monday, talking about, Saturn and Capricorn, because it's really the feminine energy that lays down the laws, that disciplines, that makes sure the society is moving in lock sync with its values. And I think that's the part where we have sort of lost our way over the course of time. And let me say this, it's all right and perfect, right? It was all right and perfect, because we sometimes, that pendulum swings too far to the one side and then it comes back into a balance. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. So Mimi, what are you saying? The masculine might be in retrograde, appears to be going backwards. That's a funny thought. It is a funny thought because the masculine energy pulling back out of the energy of the feminine, and the feminine reaching out of the masculine and into her own rightfulness. So I love that. Suzanne says that's true, yin and yang, and that's exactly right. It's funny because after I got off the air with everybody yesterday, I decided, I'm going to pull a card for myself. And I pulled the yin card. And I went, oh, that's too funny because I've been behind the scenes trying to take a lot of action. And yin energy is receptive, right? We hold space and receive. Maybe it's our intuition that we receive, impulses from. And it's more of the masculine energy to be proactive and action oriented. And I'd been straying over into that territory. And so it was a good reminder to me to stay receptive, right? To create from my feminine side and not from that masculine side. All right. So this new moon definitely is going to be a powerful one. And today we're going to start to see the elements pop up in our reality that really show us what direction things are going and what new beginnings or doorways or portals, if you will, are opening up for us. And in the process, of course, there's always the one that's closing, the doorway that's closing. What do I have to let go of in order to move forward powerfully? So it'll be an interesting day, an interesting rest of the week. Remember, Monday, I said, first part of the week is probably going to be the easier part. Today, we begin that transition to the more interesting, maybe difficult energies. And just because I say the word difficult doesn't mean it has to be difficult, but often, we're challenged more with the kind of energies that are coming up. And today's sort of that pause. You know how when you take an in breath and there's just that momentary pause before the out breath, that's kind of where we are today. We're in that pause before the out breath. So the only real interesting astrological energies for the day are the sun and moon in a sextile to Uranus. So, right, because we're in that void of course moon this morning. So the moon isn't making any kinds of real connections until after it moves into Pisces. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Tomorrow, however, begins the high energy. I mean, there's tomorrow literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different things going on. Friday the 13th on Friday. So we have a sacred feminine day coming up this week. And outside of the superstitions, to me, I believe that the 13th, especially when it falls on a Friday, is a call for the feminine energy to again exert her influence in the world. Tina says trying to force doors open or force them closed doesn't work, right? It's very frustrating, very frustrating. And, I had another friend yesterday. I don't see her on live here this morning. I'd bring her in if she were. That she described something to me yesterday that I found fascinating. And that was that she felt yesterday like she had a hole in her, like there was a part of her missing. And it felt like it was in her emotional center, the solar plexus, like just a hole right through her. And she felt it as like something missing from her life. And what she is noticing that's missing from her life is relationships. And that it's, almost begging her to be fulfilled, like there's a part of her missing. And some of you may be experiencing that. As I was thinking about her comment about that yesterday or last night, I was thinking, there's no real astrological thing I could point to that says that that's what we're feeling. But what if there is? What if the energy in Aquarius, the moon moving through Aquarius and now finishing its transit through Aquarius, was really showing us the future? And what needs to be filled in for our future. Interesting thought, because Aquarius is very futuristic. It points, in a direction of the new, of what's coming. And, Aquarius rules things like technology and innovation and invention. So perhaps what she was feeling is what will be needing to be filled in as time moves on here. And let's see, is there anything else I wanted to tell you all about that? Yes. So I'm going to human design at this point in time because I wanted to point out a couple of things to us. One, remember we're talking about yin and yang and the masculine and the feminine needing to be balanced. And today what we see is the planet Venus moving into the gate 2 in our human design. And gate 2 is the most receptive gate in human design. It is the most feminine energy gate in human design. And we have the feminine Venus moving into this gate where she's going to spend, she will be here through the new moon. And that puts us in a really good position to really call to us the energy of the feminine and rise to our own receptivity. I was going to do this and I didn't, but I have the book sitting here because I wanted to look at gate 2 in the gene keys and see if we can see what the shadow is and how we can raise ourselves up to the gift. So interesting. Ooh, interesting. So the shadow in gene key 2, first of all, the title of the gene key is Returning to the One. Kind of love that, right? Returning to the One. It makes me think of what I was just saying about the masculine and the feminine being the different sides of the same coin. And great question, Tina. I'll get to that in a minute. Returning to the One, the shadow of dislocation and the gift of orientation. And the siddhi, or the highest expression of, is unity, right? Becoming one. So to me, when I see that, I'm thinking that, receiving that new balance, that new harmony in some of the maybe dislocating events that we see going on in our outer world, staying oriented for you. Now, Tina asked a really good question. I wasn't going to bring this up until next week when it happens, but hey, we can talk about it now. What should we prepare for with Saturn going retrograde? Well, what I would prepare for with Saturn going retrograde is the fact that Pluto is also retrograding next week, just 2 days after Saturn. And so the whole week is about this energy of turning the Titans inward. So Titans, in mythology, they were huge, they were powerful, and they basically were like the masters of the universe. And the masters of the universe got into periodic fights and wars with one another for supremacy. And so we have the planet that we think of as transformation and empowerment in Pluto, and the planet Saturn, which I am now questioning whether or not it was really a man god or a female goddess. Rightfully so, because it represents this idea of discipline and order and structure and values, living in alignment with those values. So a lot of that energy this next week turns inward from that new beginning on Sunday's new moon to the 17th and the 12th. Let me see what days exactly that is. Okay, ingress. Here we go. Right. So Saturn turns retrograde on the 17th and Pluto on the 22nd. So preparing for what it is that you need to order and structure on the inside in order to live out your values, right? When these planets move inward, there's an inner shift. Now, I would bet the outer world is going to be filled with some comeuppances. And I say that, I wonder, this is just me wondering, no one has said anything like it, but I'm wondering if there is something under the surface that has gone on with Paul Ryan. Either, maybe it isn't that he's positioning himself to run for a higher office. Maybe that there's some tattletale information that's coming out that he is going to run from. So I think, as Mimi calls him, the 45 or 45, some comeuppances, some things being revealed from what has been going on in the underworld and exposing them to the light. And, for change, not for, we have all these ideas about why it was that William Cohen's offices were not broken into. Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. Why his offices were basically served with search warrants so that they could get information. But we have no idea what's going to be revealed from that information. And I wonder if we start to see that as we move into, let's see, the 17th is next Tuesday, the 22nd the following Sunday. So it should be a revealing next couple of weeks as we see what the results are of these two planets turning retrograde. Now, these planets retrograde at least 4 to 6 months out of the year. So it's not something new, right? It's not something new for us. But what they do is they go back over the territory that they have been in over the previous 5 to 6 month period of time. So you can look back to where you were learning about structure and form and discipline, where you needed to enact boundaries, where you'd been feeling limited, and see how much growth there's been while you were focused inward instead, or focusing your outer world in a specific direction. Now you're going to get a chance to refocus inwardly. Now what needs to go? What needs to be pruned out of our life, or what needs to be made room for to bring into our lives? And it's a continuing saga, because this is always happening. It's like this, the wave motion. It comes in and then it moves out. And it is always doing this. It's nothing new. It's not like Mercury that happens quickly, and in relatively speaking, and these planets spend a long time there. So we don't always feel the effects in the moment. It may be building up. Like we may have an experience or something the day or so around the change of direction, and then it takes time to really feel like what is happening here. Mimi, what did you just say here? Comey's book release and interviews will occur next week. Yeah. So some interesting ahas perhaps that we all find out. I'm not sure. So much is building up right now. There's no mistake that the new moon, the Aries new moon, the energy of beginnings, the beginning, the true authentic beginning of the astrological new year begins with the new moon in Aries. Happens in conjunction with Uranus, which then in just a few weeks changes signs. So I think, this is I feel like, a boulder, an avalanche even, right? The avalanche begins and it slowly begins, and then it just picks up speed, and it just kind of becomes a force to be reckoned with. And I feel like there are forces to be reckoned with. And I don't feel like it's about you and me. I feel like it's the bigger collective out there, the bigger dynamics that are in play, mostly because Uranus is an outer planet. Saturn is an outer planet, if you will, and so is Pluto. And those outer planets sometimes are playing on the bigger field, right? Not so much in the personal field. So yes, we may have an effect in our lives by what's going on out there, but keep reeling it in and be personal with it. What does this mean for me? This isn't something that's in your control, in other words, right? These are forces at work beyond your control. And all you can do is read the signs, be intuitive, and do what's correct for you. And to that end, of course, next week we have our Type, Strategy, and Authority webinar. Today you guys can't believe this. Yesterday I worked through a buttload of technical glitches, and this is under Mercury retrograde too. I can't even believe this. Technical glitches in automating this webinar. Mimi, bless you for your help yesterday. Bless you, Jennifer, my daughter, who I had to refund on PayPal 3 different times. Wow, I tried to perfect this whole thing about the webinar, and I did it. I absolutely did it. And now it's working seamlessly, hopefully. And at least there's no cracks that I found. So hopefully now, as you pay for your seat in the webinar, which is only $20, that you immediately get the information for the webinar in terms of the connection, the link to join it, and the password to join it. and that's all I can hope for, right? Because I tested it, Mimi tested it, Jennifer tested it, and finally all the glitches were worked out, to the point where the guy that I had started to hire from Fiverr.com to do this for me got, kind of laid off this morning because I didn't need him to finish it for me. And he was happy that I was able to do that. It wasn't a bad thing at all. But anyway, so, I think we can sort of say, expect the unexpected and be okay with the unexpected, right? Don't gnash your teeth over it. Because the unexpected is sometimes the gateway to something so brand new and so exotic and so wonderful that you can't even imagine, from your limited human perspective, that this doorway would ever open for you. So I don't want us to get into panic mode and think the whole world is falling apart, but things are definitely in flux. And that's not, again, these are out of our control. Those bigger energies are totally out of our control. All you can do is stay focused in your now and learn to live from your type, strategy, and authority. So you always know, no matter what's going on in that outer world, how to live your life, right? How to live what's correct for you. It takes no small measure of courage to do this. And I applaud everybody who takes that journey consciously, even if you fall flat on your face. Because trust me, I've fallen flat on my face a couple of times. Well, let's be honest, several times on this journey of finding who I really am and living my life authentically. And anyway, so interesting world, interesting things happening. Remember, Saturn and Pluto are both going retrograde in Capricorn. Capricorn, the sign of structure and form and government and military and those bigger institutions that we think of that support, that form the infrastructure, if you will, of our world. So I would say we might be vacillating between crumbling structures and having to build structures. I think one thing that does concern me that I see is the undoing of a lot of regulations that were put into place when Pluto moved into Capricorn to keep the banking industry from, or the mortgage industry, the banking industry, let's call it the banking industry, from going out and doing some chaotic things, financing issues and what have you, securities and exchange things, that protections that were put into place so that we didn't have another repeat of the recession. Well, if we have now rolled them back, which I think is a big, big mistake, then what we may end up seeing as Uranus gets ready to move into the financial sign of Taurus is another complete meltdown of the economy. And this one may be very complete, right? Where, we can no longer put the Band-Aids on it. I don't know if that happens over one day or if that happens at, over time. I wish I had a crystal ball and I could tell you. All I can say is you can't control what's going on out there. So be in the flow. Don't be in fear. Be aware, but don't be in fear. And we'll just have to ride this out together, right? As a community. I think I've said this before, and I think all of you would agree that humanity tends to come together when things are bad. We see the best of humanity arise out of some of the more catastrophic things that happen. And it's a shame that it is that kind of event that takes us to the level of community that we were really born with, but it is what happens. And, I wonder if we can't start consciously coming together as community so that these bigger events that happen don't have to take us down. I don't want those catastrophic things that happen in the outer world to be the reason that we come together and take care of one another. I really don't like that. I love the spirit that it evokes, but too soon that spirit is gone when the hurricane damage is fixed, when the earthquake damage is fixed, when the 9/11 terrorism thing is taken care of, or, whatever shootings there are, etc. So I want to caution us all to remember our humanity, even in the good moments, right? Remember that we're a community always. And the more we support one another in our everydayness, then the less effect that these major changes in the outer world have for us, because we've formed our own infrastructure, if you will, right? Our infrastructure of taking care of one another. I hope that makes sense. All right. Well, I think I am done for today. The moon will be moving into Pisces in a little while. That is going to gentle up the energy, I think, for the rest of the day. The initial out breath is a gentler one. Won't take the moon long, though, before it comes into contact with Neptune. And of course, tomorrow and the next day, it'll come into contact with Chiron. So we just have some fun days ahead of us. I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. It almost makes me a little bit giddy because we get to see astrology in action. What's not to love about that, right? All right. So thank you, Tina. Thank you, Roseanne. Thank you, everybody who's out there. Mimi, for those of you who support this show every day. Suzanne. And I love you all. You know, yesterday I discovered I have been on air now 169 days in a row. Now there's been a couple of days where I was sick or I was on vacation, but I realized yesterday I have 169 videos up for the daily astrology. It's crazy. I just can't believe I've actually done that many, but it's kind of fun. So I hope to keep continuing on this morning show, and take care, everybody. Let me know how your life is going. Tina, good luck to you today. Please keep us posted on what's going on. Everyone else, much love to you, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Bye for now.